បាទជំរាបសួរទូរទស្សនិកជនជាទីមេត្រីបាទថ្ងៃនេះយើងត្រូវនិយាយភាសាអង់គ្លេសមួយទៀតហើយពីព្រោះយើងមានកូនខ្មែរយើងម្នាក់ដែលមានជោគជ័យដ៏ជាច្រើននៅក្នុងជីវិតរបស់គាត់ហើយគាត់បានធ្វើការជាមួយនឹងខាងនយោបាយខាងអីផ្សេងៗទៀតបាទប៉ុន្តែគាត់មិនសូវចេះគាត់មិនចេះខ្មែរទេចេះខ្មែរតិចតួចហើយដូច្នេះខ្ញុំត្រូវតែនិយាយអង់គ្លេសបាទ Today we have our new guest. His name was Kolby Gao. Kolby was raised and schooled in Southern California. He received his BA in political science with a focus in comparative politics from the University of California, Irvine. Kolby graduated summa cum laude and received the Chancellor Award of Distinction, recognized the top 48 student leaders in the class of over 7,000 graduates. Kolby is a manager at the Harbour Group where he managed public diplomacy program and exchange opportunity and strategic communication for international clients. He previously led external engagement for the University of California, Washington Center, where he founded and launched the UCDC mentorship program. He also the board of secretary of YNPDC on the fellow executive board of the National Society of High School Scholars. Vice President of UC Irvine Alumni Association DC chapter and a 15-year volunteer for the American Youth Soccer Organization from 2013-2015, where he appointed a city commissioner for his hometown Garden Grove, California. We are honored and proud to have Kolby on our show today. Let's welcome Kolby Gao. បាទជម្រាបសួរ Kolby សុខសប្បាយ
ជំរាបសួរពូសុខសប្បាយ
Yeah, I guess you born very close to us here, and then once you got graduate and everything, kind of like move out of town and to another place. Let me ask you, when you were in Garden Grove, you go to high schools through high schools and process. Are you as good as when you are at college?
Yeah, I went, born and raised in Garden Grove, lived there for 20 plus years, and I actually went to 3 different schools. I first went to school in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., where I thought I wanted to end up and didn't quite work out for me. I came back and I went to Orange Coast College, which is not too far from Long Beach or Bellflower, but it's in Costa Mesa. I went there for 2 years, and then I was very fortunate to end up at University of California, Irvine, UCI, to finish my 2 years at school. But I loved growing up in Orange County and Long Beach. My grandparents were in Long Beach. They're still in Long Beach. So I have a great affinity for Southern California, the Khmer community.
Thank you. So you go. It seems like in college or in Irvine University of Irvine, you got like really high honor there. You are 48 out of 7,000 students, and you get an award from the chancellors and what's highest score point GPA. Is that because you study really hard or work hard, or is that just because you are good, or how is it?
I wouldn't say that I'm naturally smart. I really think it was a lot about hard work, and I have to give credit to my parents who really instilled with me the values of that. To be honest, college was not the high school. High school was very easy for me. I think I had a great experience there, was involved with a lot of activities, and was really, I thought, prepared at the time to be the first person in my family to go to college and to complete a degree. But what I mentioned to you is when I went to my first college, it did not go my first. I failed classes. I got really sick because I was trying to do everything I was doing in high school. I was trying to be the president of this organization. I was trying to run this organization. I was trying to be on the debate team. I was trying to be on the student government. I was trying to take 2 languages, Arabic and Spanish at the same time. Just a lot of rookie bad mistakes. And so I had to figure it out. I had to come home. And that was a difficult conversation with my parents and a lot of my friends about coming home and kind of figuring out how to reprioritize my life. But with the support of my parents, was able to go to community college locally for 2 years, really focus on my grades and focus on my work ethic. And, I was able to work part-time. I was able to volunteer in the community, volunteer for my city, which I would not have gotten to do if I hadn't come back. I got to intern for Congressman Alan Lowenthal, which later on will lead me to my first job. But it was a little bit of a difficult term. But when I got to UCI, I knew, because I had made mistakes my first year, that I really needed to focus on my grades. And so I would not claim to be smarter than my class necessarily, but I will say that I was instilled with a work ethic that I'm very proud of. That came from my parents, and that determination did lead me to do quite well at UCI, to be near the top of the class, and to, I think, allow me to make choices to get me back on path to the career that I wanted to take.
Sounds good. It seems like I think it's happened to probably a lot of us. Sometimes you make a mistake by trying to grab too many things all to
Yeah.
yourself, and then you say, "Well, you know what? I can't handle. I have to focus on certain thing," and then that's where you can success in that. So at university, are you also work part time or join any volunteer program or being anything at all, or basically purely study?
Yeah, at university, I started and I made sure that I was giving the time that I needed to succeed in classes, because I knew after that first year, when I had made mistakes, that I needed to reset that, and it would follow me if I didn't do that. So I always made sure. I also knew that it was important to me to develop my skills by joining different groups. And so I joined student government. That was something I really enjoyed. I enjoyed kind of thinking politically, and more importantly, thinking about how to help my community. If there's anything that I can attribute to, particularly my dad who's Khmer, who came here and gave a lot for us, is how to help others, how to make sure that other people are being brought along when you're doing well yourself. And so volunteered for a lot of groups, volunteered for my city, was working part-time at actually a tennis center. So teaching like young kids and some adults who were learning tennis. That was my first part-time job. And then also volunteering, you mentioned the American Youth Soccer Organization. I was a player for a long time. I wasn't the best player, Tony. I was like, okay, but I was a really good referee. I was a really good soccer official. And so was a young soccer official and loved it so much that began teaching classes, rose in the ranks, and have continued to volunteer for that organization for a decade and a half plus now. But that, I think, when I think about my development, was so important to meet people, to think about how to communicate with people, to understand like why people do things, have hobbies, and like are committed to causes. And I know for a fact that all those things led me to be a better candidate, a better person, a better human when I started my career.
Sounds very good. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm gonna get back into the what is it, young professional student that you have been president of. Okay, so we're gonna take a
Okay.
quick break.
Thanks, Tony.
But so สวัสดีกุมตลอดมาเวง but welcome back. Kobe, what first of all, what made you interest in politics? I guess because you said that you interned for Congressman Alan Lowenthal. Uh, that's a politics. Is that what made you interest in politics? Is that within you, or is that somebody tell you, or what drive you to be in the politics area?
I look at my family, and I will tell you this: nobody in my family likes politics. No, nobody likes to talk politics. So this is definitely me. But when I think about where it came from, uh, my mom and dad, I think, when I was 12, sent me on a program to Washington D.C. for a week, and I got to meet students from across the U.S. and I got to see the Capitol, look at the cultural sites and museums, see some of the historical places in the U.S. And I knew at 12 that I want to come back to Washington D.C. And I don't think I necessarily knew I wanted to work for the Congress or anything else, but at an early age, I knew DC was a place I wanted to spend some time in. Later on, jump forward to sophomore year high school, I also got to go to New York and DC for an international diplomacy program, and I got to meet not only students from the US, but now from all over the world, from Puerto Rico, from Curacao, from China, from Argentina, and spend 10 days with them debating issues of international importance, pretending to be, the United Nations, doing a MUN simulation. And that further, I knew that I wanted to be thinking about foreign policy and how the world communicates, how cultures communicate. And adding to that, I got to go to Cambodia with my dad and my grandpa when I was 13 or so for the first time. We went for 2 weeks to see my uncle get married in Cambodia. And then I went again 3 years later. My grandpa passed to take him back and see family. And then actually 3 years ago, I went to Cambodia with my entire family. My brother, he went for his first time, and my mom got to go. So I think getting to spend time in Cambodia and meet extended family was also really important to me. At a young age, at 12, I got to go to not only to Mexico or to Canada, but to Cambodia. A completely different, I think, perspective for Americans. I think just don't understand. So a lot of the people I grew up with, I think, have a different perspective than me because you haven't really left home. Some of them haven't left home. That's okay. But for me, being half Khmer, half white, half American, well, fully American, but getting to grow up with two cultures, I think always had an interest in okay, how do other cultures interact with each other, which really led me to think I want to do, international policy, international affairs.
Sounds good. How do you get yourself involved in the young professional foreign, what is that, foreign policy? How did you get yourself involved in the beginning?
Yeah, so I graduated UC Irvine in 2015, and I got the job offer from Congressman Lowenthal a few months later. So I moved to DC, and eventually figured it out, the buses, all that. But spent the first 6 months getting really good at my job, just focused at work. Right, I knew from past experience, focus at one thing at a time. Right. After that, though, when I felt like I was doing pretty well at work, I wanted to meet other people. I wanted to meet and other professionals that were doing things outside of the Congress, outside of Capitol Hill. And so I was looking for a group that would put me with people that were talking about the stuff that I study and care about, international affairs, global issues. And so I met somebody at a coffee and they said, hey, you should check out this group, Young Professionals in Foreign Policy, YPFP. And I said, okay. And I'm someone who, if I get involved with something, I go all in, Tony. I go all in. So instead of just joining as a member, I applied to be a leader with them. I applied to volunteer with them, and was fortunate after a series of interviews to become the managing director for programs in 2016 or so. So head of programs, putting together events with ambassadors and thought leaders, people at think tanks, at human rights groups. And fast forward, I volunteered with them for 4 years. My last year, I ended up being president of the organization, which was an immense honor, a ton of work for sure. But I had a really excellent team of about 100 volunteers spread out in DC, New York, Brussels, San Francisco, all with this mission to help build the next generation of leaders, to help build the leaders the world needs, giving them resources to develop their own skills professionally, providing them opportunities to meet senior officials so that they have a more networked and nuanced thinking of the world, and also just providing a community of young people who are passionate about these topics, to putting them together, because good things happen when you put passionate people together.
So is that young professional is kind of like an organization where a group of young people come together and share knowledge. Is that right?
That's right. So it could be you come together and you're in an auditorium, you're listening to a former ambassador talk about their career. It could be a small group of 12 people coming together in my house, and we're talking about what just happened last week in South Africa. It could be a group coming together for a resume workshop. But yes, it's all young people, and it's trying to help them in their careers, but also help them meet other young people who care about those things.
Basically it's also help them to improve whatever their destiny is. So let's say somebody want to be in politics, they can also come in there and also get help with the young professional, right?
Yep, that's right.
So is it a young professional for young professional in foreign policy? Is it global
Mhm.
everywhere in the world?
Yeah, so it's a global nonprofit headquartered in DC. So most of our staff in DC. There's a large presence in Brussels, in Belgium. There's a large presence in New York. A small presence in Tel Aviv, small presence in Dubai, San Francisco, Toronto. But I think particularly now, when during COVID-19, when the whole world is going virtual, just like you and I are, there is an opportunity for YPFP and so many orgs to have a virtual membership, and YPFP has done a very good job in pivoting to virtual programming. So even if you're not in one of those hub locations where there's a physical presence where you have events in person, you could be in Taiwan, you could be in Argentina, you could be in Phnom Penh, and become a member if you're interested and log on to the online events when they happen. And you just need a camera and a screen to follow along.
How do they join the young professional in foreign policy?
Yeah, they can go to www.ypfp.org. So ypfp.org. And it will tell you all about becoming a member. If you're a student, there's a student discount so that we understand that there are expenses. But there's also, say you want to try it out, there's also a lot of free events that anybody can go to. But so just go to ypfp.org and you can check out what free events there are. If you're interested in writing articles, there's also opportunities to do that. And there's an annual fellowship program as well.
So, okay, beside the young professional in foreign policy, you also advise, or what was that? University of Washington Center,
Yeah,
right?
UCBC.
So, what did you do there?
Yeah, so UCDC, I worked from 2017 to 2019 for 2 years. I was special assistant to the executive director and head of external engagement. And so that program is the University of California's kind of home base here in Washington, D.C. So each of the 9 UC campuses will send their students to D.C. typically, right, not during COVID-19, to DC to come intern and at any of the places in DC, at Congress, at a federal agency, at a nonprofit, in the private sector, and they would live and take classes here in DC. So my job was to, number one, help the executive director oversee the program and all that entails. But number two, which I loved, was connecting young students who were interested in these fields to alumni mentors in DC. And we did that we started a mentorship program, which was a 10 to 14 week, very intensive program where we connected, undergraduate students interested in political science or nonprofits or arts, whatever it might be, with alumni, UC alumni who are now living in DC in those fields. Did that for 2 years, loved it. That program has gone virtual now, but I'm definitely following. I volunteered as a mentor for them this fall.
Sounds great. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with your current career and future career. Okay, we're going to take another quick break. But សូមស្វាគមន៍ត្រឡប់មកវិញបាទ right now you're working at a place called Harbour Group. What are you doing there? It's also involved in politics.
A little bit. So I moved to the Harbour Group about 1 year ago. We just finished my first year. It is a public affairs firm that works with international clients. Through that work, I do strategic communications and public diplomacy advising for our clients. An example of that is one client we work very closely with is the United Arab Emirates Embassy in Washington, D.C., so the UAE Embassy. Uh, I act as a communications advisor to the embassy team. We help them think about what type of relationships they should want to connect with in the United States, about what type of exchange opportunities, what audiences we want to be talking to. But it's a interesting job that does a little bit of everything from project management, strategic communications to social media monitoring, but also relationship management, which I think is the most fun part of the job.
What I'm seeing so far right now is that it seems like you build your foundation based on politics. So basically, everywhere you go, it seems like also always touch the politics side. Do you have any plan to really fully put yourself into, for example, like running for senators or whatever it is there in the American politics at all?
It's a good question, Tony. It's funny because I some folks ask a lot, and I'm always uncertain because I would say right now, no, I don't have any plans, and particularly me living in DC, I really love this city. I really love being here, and I have a kind of a community here. If that were to happen, I think the place I would look to to come home, right? Come home to Garden Grove, to come home to Long Beach, and think about how to get involved with the community. Um, you say politics, and I do follow politics, but for me, I think the theme that I've touched on to that's important to me, and the reason why I volunteer for all these places is just service, right? Thinking about how to help community, how to create a community. When I think about some of the groups I get involved with now, one I notice when I get on these groups is, there's a lack, sometimes there's a lack of diversity, there's a lack of representation. And for me, being someone that's half Khmer, half white, I think it's important to recognize that because there's just a different perspective that I can offer. But second, what has been really important that I'm trying to work on now, after being on some of these groups for a little bit, is okay, how do I bring along the next, right? How do I further, I'm here, but what can I do to make sure the rest of the table, the rest of the group looks a little bit more like me or looks a little different from, white men on the group. So that's something that I'm trying to work on with my groups, whether it be, YPFP, whether it be YNPN, whether it be NSHSS. And it's something that I think all of us should be kind of putting ourselves out there. So when asked the question about would I consider political life later, definitely maybe. I think I would really enjoy it. I think I would do it because, again, I think representation is important, representation of different backgrounds. And whether it's me or me supporting others who are diverse and have interesting ideas, I definitely think there's a future for that at some point.
You born in the United States, right?
Yeah, born in Garden Grove.
So if you born here, you are eligible to be in in the American politic arena, right?
I think my family would just like hate me for it, but yeah, technically eligible. Yeah, yeah.
That is true because as me as the older generation from from me and older, we don't really like too much about politics and stuff, but the younger generation, they seem to be okay. I mean, you can see what Alexander Corte, who is it? No, there's a guy that is the youngest guy that just got into the Senate or the Congress, 27 years old. What is his name? I don't remember his name.
And in the U.S.
He,
Congress.
yeah, it's either the Senate or the Congress. He's 27 years old, I think. So he's the
Maybe
youngest
one
member.
of the yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you all in that area now. I would prefer the younger generation running the country rather than the older generation running the country, right?
I definitely think a reason why a lot of people are upset or unhappy with governments is because there's a lack of representation of different faces, right? Whether it's color or creed, but also age. A lot of folks that have been there for a while. And listen, not to be ageist, and I think experience is important. And you can run at a later, when you're older and still do great work. Let's be very clear about that. But that should not deter young people from trying, from getting involved, because there are unique perspectives. Decisions being made right now in Congress, in the state houses, at the county level, are going to not affect the people making those decisions now, right? Not going to affect the 60-year-olds that may hold office now, but they are going to affect me because the policies are going to roll over and continue, and particularly ones when we're talking about big ticket items, climate change, sustainability efforts. Those actions or lack of actions are going to affect me and my kids. And so if we think about that, if we flip the script a little bit, I think it's absolutely mandatory that young people consider getting involved. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean running for office, but it does mean voting. It does mean volunteering. It does mean getting involved in advocacy groups and getting involved in campaigns that they care about. Because if you don't, then you're letting somebody else decide your life. And we all know that we don't like that, right?
Exactly, exactly. That is true. What I like about the younger generation is they have a lot of idea and technologies and everything's all involved. It's like you just said, they know science, they learn about science, they know science is fact. They find that climate change is true. But I mean, for some people in the in the older generation, they might think that the climate change is not true. But like you just said, the climate change is true. It will affect you probably 10, 20, 30 years from now on. What it looked like is that you allow someone else making decision for your future, is right. So you rather make your own decision for the future than have someone else making your own decision for your future. Don't you think
That's
so?
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because I see that the climate, like you just said, the climate change it's really happening, and it does happening, and if you take account from year to years, you just let's say like from year to year, you see that the temperatures go different, the ice melting, it's more and
Fire.
more ice melting, more pollution. There's a whole lot of things going on, and if we don't slow it down, it's going to burn out pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I get a little bit because I think if you're from an older generation, this was not a focus for so long, right? You weren't hearing about it all the time. You were kind of going on with your life, and like that's no one's fault. It's just now when technology has advanced, when science has gotten better, when there's a little bit more of acceptance and monitoring these patterns. Now there's all this attention, whether it's from the media, whether it's from academia, whether it's from advocacy groups saying, "Hey, this is a big deal. It's been happening." But I think I can see why the older generation who was like, well, why haven't we heard about this before? Well, we weren't there yet. We didn't have all the information yet. And I think the positive thing about having a younger generation that is plugged in, that knows how to utilize technology well, that knows how to organize and get messaging out there well, is we have an opportunity to help bring some folks along. Now we're not going to be able to reach everybody because some people don't want to hear what they don't want to hear, right? That's just a fact. But there are folks who I think if we are able to help reach out, help inform, help them learn, we can bring them along. But again, it takes young people to be involved in their community and to know their neighbors, to have relationships first, and then you're able to share important information. If I'm coming to you and I don't know you and I'm telling you what you're doing is wrong, you're less likely to listen to me than if I already know you, we're friends, and now I'm telling you something that, hey, this is a big deal, and here's what you can do to help out.
You're absolutely right. You know exactly. First, you probably need to get to know the people, need to be familiar, and then you can kind of like slowly tell them what's true and what's right and what's wrong. Because if you don't, you cannot. Basically, what I'm thinking is that while you're driving, you cannot make a quick turn. You know, you got to make a slow turn. If you make a quick turn, you're going to be in trouble. That's what it is. Yeah. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. Okay.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. Kobe, I like you to kind of like give advice to the younger generation, to the kid who, let's say, high school or maybe junior high. What advice do you or can you give them so that they can be as successful as you are right now, at least, and not, go off to a different road or something like that. And what kind of a mistake that you make and what kind of obstacle that you meet or you met when you were younger, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Tony, for the question. There's a lot to unpack there. I think lessons I've learned, include, not trying to rush everything, not trying to do everything at once. That is one. Um, so two, like learning how to appreciate kind of where you are and the moment you're in. And I think particularly now, when we're so far apart and we can't see each other and it's harder to interact. And I think young folks, I think we have the tendency to disappear into our phones and our technology. Um, we need to build our support system, right? Whether that's our family, whether that's our friends, and that can be online too. But the world will come back at some point, and human interaction is necessary. But however you do it, we need to create a support system for when we trip, for when we fall, to help pick us up, because it's hard to do it by yourself. Particularly, I think for me, having been like the first person in my family to go to college for the first time, I didn't know what I was doing. My parents could give the best advice they could, but I think that's a big situation for folks from Southeast Asian Khmer community, right? Our parents didn't go to school, so we're trying to figure out on our own. Um, when doing so, I think we have to seek help and we have to find others, whether it's teachers or mentors or older siblings who've done it before, who can kind of give us the advice about what we should try out, what we shouldn't try out. No matter what, though, there will be mistakes, and that's okay. It matters more how we are picked up ourselves and with others from the times that we trip. I think also, planning is good, and it's good to have an idea of what you want to do, but realize like that will change many times. I think when I came out of high school, I had the goal. I wanted to be a foreign service officer. I wanted to be a diplomat working for the State Department. That was what I thought. I was taking the classes for that. I kind of put blinders on and said, I'm not going to consider anything else. Fast forward a decade, through college, fast forward through my first 5 years of my career, I've not done any of that. I've not, been a diplomat. I've worked with diplomats. I work with diplomats now, but I work in a little bit different career that I didn't know existed until I started volunteering and meeting other people and getting exposed to different experiences. I never thought that I would work for a U.S. congressman. I thought I was going to work for the State Department, but working for Congress was a great introduction for me. I never thought I would work for the UCDC system, but absolutely loved that experience, and it introduced me to a whole network of individuals that I can call upon, to grab lunch safely, to ask for advice because they work in a completely different field that I do. And I say, also think about what you're doing outside of what you have to do, right? We have to go to school. Or maybe you don't go to school, but you have to be working, right? Because that's our lifestyle requires some sort of activity to subsist us, provide income. But what else can you do? What is something, if you're not absolutely satisfied at work or at school, what other groups that you care about, whether it's sports or clubs or organizations, think about joining because that's where you're going to meet people who share your passions and they're going to have knowledge that you don't have. And if I think about how I ended up in my job now, I wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't been volunteering with YPFP. Like it's a crazy story where I met my now boss on a trip that YPFP sponsored. I was about to take another job, but because of this random encounter, and only because I was volunteering with this group, did I meet my boss who convinced me to come talk to him to take this job. And I think to me that just shows that you may have a plan, but keep your peripheral open. Keep like what's happening on the left and right because other opportunities can happen, whether you're in high school, whether you're in college, and be open to saying yes because you never know where it might take you.
I think that's right because I guess some people they say that you searching for luck, but sometimes luck is all around you, opportunities all around you. You just have to keep an eye open, keep an ear open, and listen. And sometimes it's come from a friend, or it's come from a trip, or sometimes you just take a trip and sit next to somebody in a plane, and then you start talking to them. You can get landing a big job or something, right? That's how
That's right.
that's how luck is involved in life. But if you don't talk, if you don't keep talking, asking people and searching around, you just sit home and stay at home, and or just do your thing, and you're not looking around, you're probably not going to get to where you really want to be, because that your next step is what you want to work with a diplomatic.
Yeah, I
Is
think
that
I'm not sure yet. I like where I'm at now, and I think I'll be with them for at least a few more years, and then after that, who knows? Maybe I go back to school. Maybe I come back to California. Maybe I do pursue that career in diplomacy with state. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that I now have the people in my life to be able to go to ask, hey, I'm interested in this. Can I talk to you about this? Or do you know somebody that works at that agency who might be interested in talking to me about this? But that was learning how to like use my community, to help me out during these times.
sounds very good? It seems like right now you're in a ring, a higher ring, where you can find a lot of the connection, can take the next step to reach your original goal. And I hope that you can do that, because we do want to have young people like you, uh, at least working, or running the country, or working somewhere in the politics that can help shape a better life for the younger generation. Because I mean, I think my generation is a little bit older now, but for you probably, for your young kid, you need somebody to make sure that the earth is good enough for them to live for the next 100 years or 200 years, right? So if you're going to use all the fuel, if you're going to destroy all the fuels and everything right now, then the younger generation wouldn't have anything to live. And going to Mars is not going to be another, I don't know how long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the program is coming almost to the end right now. Is there anything else that you want to add, or any advice that you want to give to the younger audience out there, or anything you want to add?
No, Tony, I just want to say thank you to you for the opportunity to come on to my TV. I know that you're doing a lot of work in the community with different nonprofits, and I think I appreciate it as a young person who I think every day I think about about my family, and I think about what other work I can be doing to do service to where my dad came from and where my grandparents came from, and the path that they took to come to the States to provide me the opportunity to be even speaking with you today. I, I've been very reflective about that lately, just about family. I think during a crisis, we go there. But I think a series like this, where you're giving young people the opportunity to tell their story, is so important. And so I just am very appreciative and thank you for the time.
No, thank you very much for spending your time with us. And we that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to connect the younger generation the successful younger generation Khmer to other younger generations so that they can follow suit. So that way we can build a better society and build a better community for our people and for our country also, I think. I want to get back a little bit into the school years. Like for example, I'm the older generation, and I think your parents are probably about the same age as me, or younger, a little bit younger or older. So when we come to the United States, we don't have any education, so it's difficult for us to advise you what to do because you kind of like more of on your own than that depend on us. Where other people they may go, depend on their parents more because their parents went to school here, and graduate here, and able to give more to their kid. But uh, you as not much parent support on the well, your parents support a lot on other things, but probably not with English and stuff like that. And when you go and ask me about English, I don't know English, right? I don't know anything about politics, but they support you a lot of other things. But what I'm saying is that since we are coming here with some of them may be empty-handed, so we're struggling and finding foods and stuff like that to feed the family and put you guys at school. So what you have done so far, it's great. You show your parents that this is uh, this is where your parents were proud of you, whatever you've done so far until today, because you have done what they wish that you can do, which is absolutely what you're doing right now. So, I mean, if I'm pretty sure that your parents were proud of you, what you're doing so far. I mean, we as a Cambodian, we also proud of all the younger generation who have, uh, you know, been very successful in their career in their school as you are right now. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more people like you. And if you know anybody else that you want us to meet and interview, let us know. Send us an email, drop us, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I know of at least one.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so I think the program come to the end right now, and we would like to thank you very much for spending your valuable time with us again, and we hope to see you again in probably in the senator or in the Congress seat at one of these days in the future. I'm pretty sure I will meet you again if you become a senator or Congress or anything, mayor or city council or whatever. Anything, we want to meet you again in the future. Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Akun Shran.
Thank you បាទអរគុណដល់ទូរទស្សនិកជនអស់ដែលបានតាមទស្សនាខ្មែរ TV តាំងពីដើមរហូតមកបាទសូមជូនពរឲ្យទូរទស្សនិកជនអស់ជួបផ្ទះតែសេចក្តីសុខប្រកបមុខរបររកស៊ីមានបានហើយមានសុខភាពបរិបូរណ៍គ្រប់ក្រុមគ្រួសារពីយើងខ្ញុំទាំងពីរនាក់សូមអរគុណនិងសូមជម្រាបលា
Thank you.